now, though. So, Stacey, if you want to just kind of give us a quick 10-second introduction, since I wasn't recording that, so that we can have that on the recording for anyone who's watching later, since I introduced you without hitting the record button. I'm really sorry about that. But without further ado, we will turn it over to Stacey.
Well, good morning, and I'm excited to be here with you guys. I appreciate you tuning in and caring about your finances. Sometimes this is one of those hot topics where we care, but it takes a lot to tune in and want to face sometimes the financial things that we're going through or decisions we have to make. So thanks for joining in. Again, my name is Stacey Reed, and I've been a financial planner for 20 years. And this November, it'll be 20 years that I've been in financial planning. I'm independent. I write with a lot of different companies, which makes it nice because I don't have a cookie cutter product or company that I represent. I can listen to you and shop that out and do my best work for you based on the needs and the desires that we're talking about. My office is on Pioneer Parkway with I've Decided and Kim. And just a little bit about myself. I'm married and have 5 kids, have 5 grandkids. We attend Northwoods Community Church, and we serve at Southside Mission on a regular basis and go on mission trips to the Dominican Republic yearly. So that's a little bit about me and a few irons I have in the fire. But so I've known Kim for many years, and one of the things that we share and have the same passion is helping people, helping you. And there's something about giving to others that does our heart good. So there's a quote I'm going to share with you because I thought it was appropriate, and it is by Denzel Washington. At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you have lifted up, who you've made better, and it's about what you have given back. And I felt like it was just appropriate for right now, because sometimes in our panic mode, we can get real emotional about, our situations and the things that we're not getting and we're not having and we're not doing. And it's just real easy to become very negative, especially if you want to turn on the TV or open your statements or any of those things. So I just felt like it's really hard to stay positive when we can't be around the people that help us to be that person. So I wanted to share that. So today the focus is coronavirus and my finances, finding financial peace in uncertain times. And this time that we are living in is really about how we are either prepared or unprepared for it. And so obviously peace comes when you're prepared. It can bring you peace, when you're prepared for an exam or a job interview, a storm, an emergency, we feel at peace. When we're unprepared, we definitely feel the repercussions of that a lot more. In this world, we will have trouble. We will have challenges and we'll have trying times. But the ability to be prepared will help us to definitely overcome that. So today I'd like to share some helpful tips to be prepared. It's hard to prepare during a storm, during an exam, during an emergency, but this is where we can learn, because this won't be the only storm that we have. So I jotted down just a few notes, and I'm going to go through them just to make sure I stay myself on track, because I can get down a rabbit hole talking about what I love to talk about and then get off of here and go, oh, rats, I forgot I wanted to share this or that. So I won't just read to you, but I want to definitely make sure that I stay on task. So number one, the biggest fear is we see our 401ks. I mean, we just got to get that cat out of the bag right now, because we see those 401ks, our statements going down, and it's a very scary time. I would just say that unless you're planning on retiring today, don't panic. There's no reason to worry. It's all on paper, and it will rebound and come back up. Every 10 years since the history of the market, we have had a downturn in the market. So literally, if you look back since the very beginning, day one of the market, every 10 years, this has happened. And the last time it happened was 2008, 2009. So we were due, it was that time frame. So I would say stay the course. At the same time, this is a time to reflect some of the risk tolerances that you feel that you are capable of having in your portfolio. So think about that. If that's something that gives you anxiety, freaks you out, that kind of thing. Some of the 401ks have options to re-diversify. So you're able to look at your risk tolerance and make those changes within the 401k if you want. You may have old 401ks or IRAs or Roth IRAs outside of your 401k business plans. And if you feel like everything that you own is in a risk bucket, then it may be a time to think about what your options are and not have everything in a risky investment. So that is definitely something that I do and I can help you with, even to educate you on what your options are and that. But anyway, those are some of the things that you can definitely do. Not to sell your investments out of fear is number one, but to look at what your risk tolerance is and stay focused on the long term. Okay. Do not overbuy in preparation. And what does that mean by that? And that is we could watch the news and see the shortages of all kinds of things, and it makes us want to go out and buy cases of toilet paper or hand sanitizer or cleaner or now cow or pig. It's like meat is the next on the list. But we could definitely panic and think we need to go out and spend lots of money. And even if that means using our credit cards, we'll do what we got to do because we'll face the debt later. We need to make sure that we have plenty of whatever it is. So just be careful with that because you can rack up a lot of debt and maybe not need a debt because we don't know. Everybody's guessing what this looks like. Nobody knows what the end of this looks like or when the end is. So are we at halftime? It's anyone's guess. And but just be careful in the over preparation and racking up debt. Number 3 was to put some emergency plans in place. And that is being creative during this time that you have the time to think about your financial situation. So where have you financially ignored areas that you need to be better at? Those are some things to think about. Do you have a budget? And I know that seems really simple, but most people don't. And you don't have to have a fancy computer program or spreadsheet or any of that. You can simply do it on a tablet of paper. But writing down what your budget looks like really will help you to see where your dollars are going. One thing that I like to say with this one is a great way to see where your money is going is to look at your bank statements in the last 3 to 6 months. And that'll really help you to see where your money is spent and where you can cut corners, where you're going way out of budget. I know I do this. I've done it for, I don't even know how long, a long time, 20 plus years I've had a budget. And I use a spreadsheet, I use Excel. And, it's eye-opening when you get to the end of the month and you've used your checkbook register and you plug in those numbers. Sometimes it's like, holy cow, we have really ate out a lot. You just don't realize when it's $20, $20. But when you get to the end of the month and it's like $600, you're like, that's a lot of money of eating out. So anyway, just doing those kind of things, reviewing your investments. Do they match your risk tolerance? Writing down like what you have and where it's at And do you have a good balance? Do you have some things in the market that can do very well when it's going well? And do you have some things in safe places so that when the market is down, you do have some safe money as well? And then life insurance, you know, are you prepared in the event that someone in your family, whether you count on their income or not, are you prepared for if something happened to them in the passing of that person and you weren't able to rely on their income? So what does that look like? Number 4 is take advantage of low interest rates. Right now we have very low mortgage interest rates, so definitely shop it out, check it out. Refinancing might be a good idea. So I can't speak of that. That's not something that I do as a service, but it's definitely something to look at this time. Number 5, boost your emergency fund. This is definitely, as we've all seen, this has definitely been something that as we can't count on whether or not we're going to have an income or what that income is going to look like during this time. Are we going to get all of our pay, 50% of our pay? And how long is this going to last? There was a lot of unknowns, and still to a degree, there are still some. So that's a big one. They typically, rule of thumb is experts suggest 3 to 6 months of your income in a savings. And I know that gets hard to do. And a lot of times when we see that number grow in a savings, we kind of feel like we have that money and we could maybe spend some. So having that as an emergency fund is very important. So that's something to look at and consider. Number 6 is looking for the opportunity to cut expenses. I know I kind of spoke of this a little bit on the budget, but definitely looking at your bank statement, your credit card statements, those kind of things, and seeing what is a necessity and what is a need versus a want. But this is a great opportunity to also look at that as an eye-opener and making an impact on your budget. And number 7 is to remember this too shall pass. Take a deep breath, resist the urge to panic, and remember that panic leads to irrational thinking, which can lead to poor financial decisions. So that's kind of the list that I have for the coronavirus and my finances. I do have a couple of challenge questions for you, and that is to think about what you've learned, good or bad, during this time. You know, in your financial, what were you prepared for? What are you not prepared for? And then what would you do if you could have known to better prepare for this storm we are in? Because I will tell you, it's really hard to prepare for something when you're already in the midst of it, right? So if they're calling for bad storms and we're going to have tornadoes and high winds and that kind of thing, what do? We go out ahead of time, we take down the patio furniture or whatever it may be. We prepare for that. And if we don't, then what happens? Our stuff is blown everywhere. So it's easier to prepare, obviously, ahead of time. Sometimes these things happen and there's no preparation. There's no time for it. So what can we do? What have we learned from this to prepare better if this were to happen again? And then what is on the back burner and needs to be addressed sooner than later? What are some things that you're like, you know what, this has been something I've been wanting to do and I need to do it. I need to think about these things and I need to do it. So I want to share with you, I actually came up with, when we extended the whole shelter in place to a degree for the month of May, I did come up with Zoom meetings for Integrity Plus, and they're for the month of May. They start May 12th. They're on Fridays. Maybe what I can do is give them to Kim, and then she can get them out to you. But if you'd like to listen in, I'm doing a breakout it's 4 weeks. It starts next Friday. They'll be at 4 o'clock. And like the first one I know is on life insurance. I'm trying to remember the second, third. Anyway, one's on life insurance, one's on long-term care, one's on knowing what annuities are, one's on retirement, IRAs, Roth IRA, 401k, that kind of thing. But they'll speak specifically to each topic. So you can tune into something that relates to you, but you don't have to listen to all of those topics if they don't all relate to you. Okay. So if you're like, I've always wondered what annuities are, or I've wanted to know the difference in life insurances and what would work for me or what's best for me. So I will share those with Kim and let her send those out to you. You guys are more than welcome to join in. I hope that you'll find those informational. But anyway, I'll open it up to question and answers. And it was good to chat with all of you. I hope this was helpful. And Kim, I think I'll let you direct the questions. Or
Yeah, so we had some things come up in the chat. Ben, you want to ask your question that you put in the chat? Because I think that's a good point for Stacey to speak to.
Sure. So I recently was listening to a podcast, and there was a suggestion made that we pause investment activity. So like pause your investment into your 401k right now and use that money to boost your emergency fund so that it's more liquid, because nobody does know what the future is holding. And I just wondered what your thoughts were on that. The other side of that is pour money into the stock market while it's cheap.
Agree. So I think that it's an individual type of question. I don't know that there's a complete blanketed answer for that, because if you're someone who has a decent savings and can, your job's still secure and everything's still the same. And in fact, there's some people that are insanely busy right now. Their job is like crazy. And, so not only has nothing changed income wise and all of those things, but they're actually busier now than ever. My husband is in that boat. So, if you're that person, I don't know that I would change anything. If you're somebody who's felt some ripple effects and it's made you a little bit cautious, then definitely I'm not so sure that wouldn't be a bad idea. Again, I think it's a little bit of a one-on-one answer versus just, I think you all should stop your 401ks. I definitely would not want to be that person to say that. But if you feel like, you couldn't go without your income for, even a month or 2 or 3, you know what? Those are the people having to hit their 401ks to make ends meet. Now, granted, they forgave the 10% IRS penalty right now to be able to do that, which is awesome, but they don't always do that. I mean, 2008 and 9, like they didn't offer that. So, not always when we face emergencies are you going to have that luxury of saying, I can save that 10% penalty and use my 401k. So I think, everybody kind of knows, your own position as to what kind of impact your finances can have when it comes to things like this. And so, and if you're like, I don't know that answer, by all means, I'd be happy to meet or talk to you one-on-one. We can have that even phone call to say, these are the things that I have. What do you think? And I'm happy to give you guidance to that as well. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes, it makes sense.
Any other questions that you can think of?
I'd be interested to hear from the group. What have you learned financially during this? It was one of the challenge questions that you gave us, but
yes.
Just to our team, anybody has this? I'll just start. So my wife and I sat down the week that I was laid off, I think, or shortly thereafter, and looked at how we spent all of our money, and we were amazed, just like the example that you said, at how often we went out to eat. And gave ourselves a few $100 raise instantly by not doing that.
Right.
So I'm just curious about anybody else who's on the call. If you had any aha moments, anything that you learned through this related to finances?
One of the things I noticed was that be careful of what finance companies, banks et cetera, are offering that they'll waive, 3 months, but then you need to take a second loan out and repay it on top of your original loan. So there's offers out there where it looks like they're doing the right thing by helping us through these troubled times, but there's sometimes a catch.
That's a great point, Mike. That's a very good point. There's just, you really have to be cautious. I was watching the news last night, and there's, people selling N95 masks that aren't N95. And I'm like, oh, come on now. Like, you just really have to watch and be careful what you're doing. And that's different, but the same. I mean, you just have to really be cautious as to, we're very vulnerable right now, so.
Yeah, I think to kind of go along with what Mike was saying, because I was also laid off for a couple of weeks, and I was just thinking, okay, I need to look at, okay, what things do I for sure want to make sure I pay on, because I don't want to be able to, or be stuck with, 2 mortgage payments in 1 month because, I asked them to, put a hold on it for a month or whatever. So I made sure that I was like, okay, I definitely still want to keep paying on, my mortgage and my car payment. And I was very thankful, that I was able to do that, because I think that, again, like what Mike was saying, they can kind of make it out like, oh, we're really helping you, which they are in that moment. But at the same time, it kind of comes back around to bite you, a couple months down the road, because it's not like they're just forgiving that amount. You're still going to have to pay it. It's just kind of furloughed a little bit. So I think that was one thing that, I was able to look at during the time. And then 2, just kind of like what Ben was saying as well, just thinking about like how much you eat out. And I don't necessarily eat out a whole lot, but I love to get coffee. So, and, it's at first you're kind of like, oh, well, $4 here, $5 here, like it's not that big of a deal. But then like once you look at it, you're like, holy cow, like I actually spent quite a bit of money on coffee, this month, and I could have just made a cup at home and saved that money. So that's something that I'm trying to kind of get better about. It's a bad habit, but I'm slowly trying.
That's awesome.
So in our company, I'm looking at who's on this call, and I think everybody is considered full-time. The majority of our employees are part-time. But what are some things that, had you known this was coming, you might have done differently? Would you have taken advantage of some of our benefits? Would you have saved differently? Would you have not turned down work or taken extra time off? I'm just curious if anybody has any thought regarding that. We were talking, I'm stupid for saying this, but oh well, it's being recorded and I'm saying to everybody. We were talking about the payment protection program is not indefinite. So some of us need to take vacation while the company can still afford for us to take it. But the point being, what would you, I really like that question. What would you have done if you knew this was coming? I'm curious if anybody has thoughts about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have done anything different, which is probably a good thing.
I don't think I really would have either. I mean, there were certain things that I was like, okay, I can't necessarily do that now. Like I was going to have somebody come and like clean up my yard because I had, a bunch of stuff from the winter and like my hosta beds and everything. And so when I was laid off, I was like, okay, well, obviously it looks like I'm going to be out there doing that because I can save myself, a couple $100. And, it actually worked out. It was a beautiful day when I did it. And I was, thankful that I was able to do it. So I think just like small things like that, you just kind of look at, okay, do I really have to do this? Or, can I do it myself? That type of thing. But I really haven't changed like a whole lot.
I
haven't changed either.
I think, Ben, it's and everybody, I mean, it's relative to where you are in life. How many setbacks you've had in life, how many, problems you've had in the past that you maybe some people might be catching up from when the economy crashed years ago. So I think what you could have done differently starts maybe when you're in college and not later in life. If you keep catching up from, being hospitalized or being laid off or being terminated or whatever the problem is, I just think everyone's in a different position. I look at my brothers, for example. I mean, they retired at a younger age than I will retire. And, God bless them. They're, great for them. I'm not jealous of them, but they manage their money differently. They didn't have kids. They didn't have the setbacks that we have. So I think it's all, your finances is relative to where you are in life. We can all do the same types of things, but not with as many tools as everyone has.
That's a great point, Mike, because if I'd have known this was coming, I was thinking in terms of if I knew it was coming 6 months before it, I probably wouldn't have changed anything. But if I knew it was coming 10 years ago, I would have changed a lot.
So share an example, if you would, when you say that.
Yeah, I started my 401k 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm 41. so that's definitely something I would have done a long time ago. But as Mike mentioned, things change in our life. So,
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's something I would, and even with my own children, I am teaching them more about money than my parents did. My parents' number one lesson was work hard and save, share, and spend, which is good, but not how to maximize your profitability. I don't mind if I tell my kids to do a job and they recruit their sibling to do it. I'm like, good for you. Here's your dollar, and go give your your sibling a quarter for helping you.
Right.
More business minded.
Awesome. I'm trying to think, what was the last question? What's on the back burner and needs to be addressed sooner than later? Do you have anything that you are financially like, all right, I need to move this to the front burner? Is there anything? No? Well,
that question, if we answer that, means that we have work to do.
That's true. Yep, absolutely. Well, I hope honestly the information as well as the challenge questions, they really help you to think about, those things. Hopefully that it'll give you some homework and some quiet time to reflect, those kind of things. Yeah.
I just wanted to speak to, it's funny you guys brought up the 2008 and 2009 and that some companies were still trying to recover from that. I'm one of those companies. My curves in 2010 went from 2008 to 2010 went from over 500 members to less than 200 members. And one of the things that I did to survive was take out business loans, charge all my credit cards, and then I went from being completely debt-free to being $150,000 in debt, which I'm still to this day paying off, and I still have about 2 years left. And so I would just say too, one of the things that you might want to consider is, what are you learning today to help you be more prepared for the future? So for example, what I experienced in 2008, 2009, I knew immediately when this started happening, I said, my husband and I talked, I knew immediately, I said, I will not charge a thing to stay alive. I will not I will not borrow money. I will not, if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. But I will never, ever, ever do what I did back then. And so I learned a tough lesson. For me personally, I learned that tough lesson back then because as what we were saying about coming back and biting you in the butt, if you don't really get back, I did all that assuming that we would just get right back up to over 500 members. And then I would be able to pay all that money back relatively quickly. But the fact of the matter is that that's not what happened. We've been working since then and we barely got over 300 members and I still had all that debt. So I say that to just share that experience with you guys. it's my belief that you just take it with I'm like, I'll just take what I get. Like, this is the way it's going to be. I will not use a credit card to pay a business bill. If the money's not there, it just won't get paid, and we'll figure it out. But so I don't know if that's relative, but
it does spark one quick question for me. So I have a duplex, and one side of it wasn't rented, so we got some no interest credit cards to pay to repair things. So I have I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 in 0% interest credit card debt that is due. The interest won't be due till February, so I just keep making payments. But with the stimulus and tax refunds, things like that, I have enough to pay all of that off. But I'm waiting because I'm disciplined enough to not spend it. But I'm just curious what your advice would be on that, Stacey. Pay it off and get it over with, or take advantage of having that free money for a little while?
So I would definitely say exactly what you said, and that is, if you're disciplined, I would say if you wanted to hold on to it just for uncertain times, that, you got it. At the same time, if you're not disciplined, pay it off. You've got that card. If something happened that you could dip in, that if you had to say, I shouldn't have done that, and I need 1,000 of it back, you could probably do that. But so if you're not disciplined, I would say pay that thing off. But if you're disciplined and want to give yourself like this many, to where we can see a little further down the tunnel, then definitely I wouldn't shy away from that. Being it's 0%, obviously that's the key word there. If it wasn't 0%, I'd say absolutely pay it off, because you're not making that kind of interest rate anywhere. But so you hit the nail on the head. If you're disciplined, I would say hold on to it for just I would say another month or two, but give yourself a time frame that if all looks well, get it paid off.
Thanks.
Yeah, you betcha.
Kim, did you see the chat question?
Yeah, Corey has a question. So Corey, you wanna ask your question?
Okay, you know what? I clicked on it. So maybe a dumb question. Okay.
No such thing as dumb questions.
No, absolutely right. Agree. Is there a recommended percent of your check that you should save, and if so, what percentage, including what you put in your 401k? Okay, so.
Oh, he doesn't have a mic, I see.
Okay, so I would say on the 401k itself specifically, rule of thumb is 10 to 15%. That's the typical rule of thumb. However, it really depends on your age. If you're someone, 30 versus 50, that might look like a different percentage. I really think ultimately, thinking about what your retirement needs to look like and should look like more than just a rule of thumb percentage. I like to say rule of thumb usually is 70 to 80% of your income is what you should shoot for retirement. That's what you'll use and need for retirement. And so if you kind of calculate that backwards as to what you're going to need for retirement, that seems like a lot of numbers. Definitely give me a call. I'd be happy to run numbers. It doesn't cost anything. It's education. There's no cost to talking to me, sitting with me, reviewing any of this, whatever. Whether we do work or we don't, doesn't matter. My number, by the way, I'll give it to you, is 309-264-1757. Again, 309-264-1757. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, and it has nothing to do with whether or not you do business with me or not. But I really think that you should map out what your retirement you're wanting, when you're wanting to retire, the age, how far that is from where you are now. What we're looking at is what you're wanting for income for that time frame. And we have financial calculators that are amazing. You can type in, we're starting with this figure. Are we going to contribute to it? How long will it last? We can project whether it's going to last, at 75, you're going to need another job, or whether, we can do lifetime payout, what that would look like. You can tell me you have $200,000, and if I retired, you know, and I didn't put another dime into it, I can tell you how long that'll last, based on what you want out of it, or based on if you just want a lifetime payout. Anyway, there's lots of ways we can calculate numbers, and it's kind of a numbers game. Like I said, typically they say 10 to 15% your 401k, but I really think that it needs to be based on your age and what we're looking at. And savings, they just recommend 3 to 6 months emergency savings. So something that you can get to quickly if you need. I hope that answers your questions. Let me know if not.
And just really quickly talking about the refinancing on the home, you know, we were, just in case some of you guys didn't see the chat, you think that's a good idea if you can get that lower interest rate. Like I got refinanced at 3%, which then I was able to reduce my mortgage from a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage. And my payment was just a couple $100 more a month. I know Ashley was saying in the chat that her bank, Fortress Bank,
Yes.
is offering 2.75% rate on a 30-year conventional loan. So Stacey, can you just clarify that, you know, that it probably just based on the average person is a good idea to get those low interest rates right now, if that's possible?
Absolutely. I mean, I honestly, I feel like education is your best tool. And that, I mean, it goes for a lot of things, right? But especially in your finances. I mean, right now we're seeing low mortgage rates, and to take advantage of that, I would definitely shop around, call around. You could even, you know, even if you want to say, you know, Google the best interest rates out there right now, and you can use that as somewhat leverage. I mean, a bank's going to be, you know, it is what it is, but there's some wiggle room in there. So I would even challenge that wiggle room. And definitely I would ask them. I've already text my banker at, her name's Teresa at Wells Fargo, and I've said, okay, if it gets to, we're at, I think 3.6 or 3.5, something like that. We just did it last April. So it's just a year ago we bought our house here in Peoria. And, but I told her if it hits 2.5, I mean, I want to go from a 15 to a 10-year loan. And she said, right now I could do it. And my payment would go up like $210. So I'm not so sure we won't do it anyway, but I kind of am just riding it just a tad bit more to see if it's going to end up lower yet. So, you know, I asked her what the closing costs would be, because I wanted to see if it'd be worth it, but we just bought our house, so we're going to be there for a bit, you know? And so I think over the duration, I mean, I'll do the math, and I'm a numbers person, so I'll make sure that it makes sense. But I think definitely, and you know what, and I'm not doing it for this reason at all, but I mean, I think you actually will end up skipping a month or two in payments as well. So if you do it, it's like, you know, you've got a couple months of breathing room there. If this is a time where it's like, I'm just trying to figure some things out, it might be a double advantage, so to speak.
Right. I think one of the hard things back here, so I bought my house about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, and I'm trying to get rid of the PMI right now.
Yes.
And so I just have a little bit more to go. But I think what's hard back here is like the houses don't necessarily like appreciate as much as they do in other areas, because I lived in Phoenix for 14 years. And it's like super common to just like bounce around from house to house. Like when I lived there from when I was 8 to 22. But so those growing up years, I mean, my family, we had 4 different houses, because, you know, you're in one house, you know, you get some equity and then you go on to the next house, that type of thing. And so when my bank came back to me and said, well, we can't quite get rid of the PMI right now because your house is about this, I'm like, I've been there for 4 years. Like, how is it not going up? You know, so I think that sometimes that can be a little bit like frustrating as well, like just back here with the market.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So, but then they came back and told me that the rate was 2.75. So I was like, okay, because right now I have like think it's like 3.8. So,
Okay, so yeah. And they usually say if you can go down 1%, it's worth it.
Right.
So that's kind of the rule of thumb on that as well. So
Okay.
if you can go down a 1%,
Okay.
usually it's worth it. So
Good to know.
yeah. So great conversation. Do you guys have anything else that you want to chat? Oh wait, hold on.
I think Corey had one more.
Sorry. How aggressive should I? You know what? You're young. You've got a lot of time. Okay, definitely that's free money right there. So that's an automatic 6%. So definitely take advantage of that. And I mean, as far as I'm gonna say, I'm assuming what you mean by aggressive is the way you invest inside your 401k. Corey, I'm assuming that's what you mean by that question when you're picking out your investments inside the 401k. There's probably more aggressive options than non. Okay, you got your money up. Okay. You know what, for you, okay, so everyone's risk tolerance is different. And it doesn't, I mean, even though somebody may say typically at your age that you should be as risky as can be because you've got all this time and you're young and that, you know, not everybody has that inside of them, that mentality of being, you know, my dad was completely a risk taker. I mean, he would throw $1,000 a month into his 401k and, I'm sorry, $10,000. He was self-employed. So he put $10,000 a month into that. And he had he's just a gambler. And you know what? I'm not a gambler. So, you know, we're just different in that respect. So I would say, you know what? I don't like losing my money. There you go. Okay. So that's more like me. So I would say, frankly, I would probably say 50-50. I would put a little in aggressive because you're young and you've got the ability to, but, and if you're, not that you have to watch it all the time, but if you just kind of know, like, I know that every 10 years, it doesn't mean that it's going to be 10. It could be in 6, it could be in 8, it could be in 5, and some things, I mean, 9/11 hit. Who could predict or know that? You know, you don't always get a warning sign that something's coming over from China, you know? So, I think you have to really think about your own personal risk tolerance and be okay that even though somebody over there has made 30% this quarter and you made 12, that you're okay with that, because that person that made the 30%, if they stay there, chances are they're going to go down too. And I've seen many clients that have brought in statements that have rolled over from a 401k into an IRA, or they've had an old 401k and we've done into a new IRA. I've seen many clients that have had statements that have come in here and their statement is up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, you know, for 13 years. And, you know, if they started with 100 and they've got 108 after 13 years, or they started with 100 and they've gotten in the 90s. So, I mean, my point in that is that you don't have to go risky to make it work. I have a chart that I have through a company, American Equity, and it shows just guaranteed 2.25%. And it says like for 4 years versus what the market did for those 4 years. And it shows that the 2.25 outdid the market during those 4 years, you know, and it's just slow and steady, you know, like slow and steady wins the race. So I don't think that you have to be a risk taker to get there, if that helps.
Very good.
Yeah, you're welcome, Corey.
Awesome. Awesome, Stacey. That's great information. You guys have any other questions or comments?
I'll get Kim the Zoom meetings for the individual breakouts. And if you want to join in, feel free. Love to have you. You have my number. If there's anything I can help you with one-on-one, give me a shout. I'd be happy to either do a Zoom call like we're doing, just one-on-one, and talk through things. But otherwise, it was great meeting all of you. Thank you for listening and joining. It was nice to